Hey folks, LTZ here. First, I want to say welcome to all of you who are discovering magical resistance and resilience for the first time. Circumstances aren't great, but we're glad to have you here. And I want to talk today about several things in understanding, growing, learning how to do it better. And understanding that all of us, we're not perfect. I'm not perfect, I know. But you're going to mess up at some point, and the best thing that we can do is consider how we can do it better and engage again. So today, first I'm going to read to you something that I wrote on Threads this morning, because it's pretty much the context for all of this. And I'm going to read it rather than just ad-lib it because I made some important parts that I wrote down. So, lately I've been seeing a lot of mention of the feminine divine. And my little side note there is, it's truly the 90s again, but I digress, right? That's for all of you who've been through the 90s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, don't worry. Anyway, back to the post. I am all for whatever gets you motivated and inspired to engage in the effort of magical resistance. But may I suggest the concept of the embodied divine instead, which is not only a radical contrast to the dominant culture, but also far more inclusive, and in recognition of the multitudes of folks whose lives are in danger under fascism. The concept of the embodied divine recognizes all bodies are worthy and sacred, regardless of gender, color, ability, age, etc. That we, and all beings on this planet, contain divine spirit. That we are part of the world and not separate from or dominant over it. And that we are striving to reconnect with ourselves, each other, and our environments in more balanced, considered ways. The rage I hold is not just for misogyny, but for racism, transphobia, queerphobia, xenophobia, classism, ageism, ableism, and so forth. All of the mindsets that stoke fear and misunderstanding, that promote hate and bigotry, these are all in violation of the embodied divine. That's the post in 3 parts. And why did I make it in the first place? I find Threads a very fascinating place. It reminds me of a kind of a short form live journal, and I love to see what the algorithm brings me. Like, there's people I'm following, but I kind of just let it do its thing. And I've been really fascinated in the discussions happening in the last week, and so many of them being about goddesses and the divine feminine, the feminine divine, feminine rage, etc. And that's great. I understand it. I have been there. If you have read Weave the Liminal, chapter 5, I talk about where I came from. And I'm just going to give you the short, TLDR for that. If you haven't read Weave the Liminal, is essentially I was raised Catholic. At age 6, I already was pissed off that I couldn't be an altar couldn't be an altar girl. They didn't have them back then. Couldn't be an acolyte, right? And it couldn't be a priest. Could only be a nun. And that didn't sit right. At age 6, I was already pissed off about that. And that the closest thing I had for feminine divine was Mary and saints, right? And a lot of those things are not necessarily empowering. So in my teens, when I discovered witchcraft and that there are so many other living concepts of deity out there, I went hardcore into the divine feminine. Like, I can't even show you online most of the artwork I did circa 1997 to 1998-ish in there. It is full of a lot of yonis. There's a lot of uterus. There's a lot of like feminine rage type things in there. And this is processing it. I also read pretty much every book you can find from like the 60s onward about the feminist movement, about the goddess movement. All of those titles, they once sat on my shelf. Some of them still do. for reference reasons. And then I started to readjust, right? To go from this hard kind of patriarchal concept that I was already rebelling against, finding this goddess concept and be like, yes, this. And then I encountered the masculine divine, for lack of a better word at this moment. And I went, oh, wait, the divine I'm looking for is first the divine within myself. That's what I started off calling the self-divine. And that I'm also looking for the divine outside of me in a multitude of expressions. That there isn't just one way to see the gods, goddesses, etc., the divine, the deities. And that has evolved in my practice to understanding and working with deities in a variety of different ways. I do not consider myself a devotional polytheist. I can respect folks who that's their thing, that's your path. Great. I'm a witch. And I have work to do that is not that kind of work. It is, here are certain agendas, this is what we're working for. And right now in Magical Resistance, what I feel is the underlying concept when people are mentioning the divine feminine, divine feminine rage, etc., is in direct relation to misogyny, to reproductive rights, and to everything else that entails. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we are forming a coalition. And it's not just reproductive rights on the table. It is trans rights. It is the rights of immigrants. It is the rights of so many people who, the whole spectrum, right? As I mentioned in my whole list, right? The color of your skin, your religion, your age, how able you are as a physical being rated by society. All of these things are on the table right now. And instead of looking outside of us for the divine inspiration, because people are like, the gods are angry. Like if the gods are angry about every injustice that happened to the world, gods would be constantly angry. We are angry and we are seeking the power of the gods. And I have long held the concept and belief that we are the gods and the gods are us. We are interwoven. That we are able to do things that gods are unable to do because we are physically embodied. They are able to see things that we cannot see because we are physically embodied. And so it is a dynamic relationship. And so in the language that we use, in understanding that we are trying to build a better society and that we are building a better society as human beings to respect ourselves and each other and the culture and society that we can build, that is why I'm saying consider your language as perhaps the embodied divine. So it is not a slag off on gods or goddesses. I actually even think it's a challenge of, we always talking about in witchcraft the feminine divine and all of the goddesses, which people are like, this one's extra fierce. They're all fierce. They're all badasses. There is something to be discovered in all aspects of deity. So don't let yourself get, again, caught up into these very narrow, like, the gender binary and these roles that we assign to deities. But there are masculine deities that have also been erased and that folks who identify as men can be empowered by. The energy of Pan, for example, is just one thing that comes to mind of being able to tap into that type of energy rather than just sorry, I should drink some tea. Here's some more tea for the tea. Tea. Back to focus, right? We can learn something from all aspects of deities. And I think that we can understand the divine better if we first instill a better concept of the divine within us and see it in each other. And that is why I wrote that. Right? I'm not trying to erase anything or say that, we don't need those things. But what we do need is inclusive language. And we do need to recognize that it's just not one fight, an aspect. It is a fight for all of these people, and we need to be doing the work together. Right? So you worship whoever you want to worship and work with the gods however you want to. But if you are doing a fight for human rights, right, against fascism, against tyranny, against just, all of the things that would make a better society, right, working for that purpose of creating a more diverse, accepting, respecting, compassionate, and kind world that we do want to live in, then we think about words, because words have meanings and words do matter. And when we're building a coalition, I think it's important to recognize that. So there's my tea. Again, welcome to Magical Resistance and Magical Resilience. Keep an eye on the weareradia.org website, because the blog there is now a new active resource for folks. And I'm going to talk more. I'll be bringing you more videos about magical resistance and that type of work in the time to come, because it's needed. And again, I'm glad you're here. Thanks so much.